Shalom lekulam and welcome back to yet another J Languages video. My name is Yair and today we are once again revisiting an old topic and one of particular interest to me as a Hebrew speaker with experience in Aramaic and a little bit of Arabic, which is of course 3 more lesser known Semitic languages. It has been well over a year since I made my first video on this topic, which is somewhat surprising for a Semitic language enthusiast such as myself, so this video is long overdue. The Semitic languages are of course a major branch in the Afro-Asiatic language family, which were traditionally distributed around this area, though now of course one Semitic language in particular, Arabic, spreads across vast areas of North Africa and the Middle East. Today I have chosen 3 languages to talk about, which I doubt many people are aware of. I'm willing to bet that nobody watching will know all 3 prior to this video, although I'm not going to bet anything because I'm sure some of my loyal subscribers will be quick to correct me that they did in fact already know these languages. Nonetheless, let's get started with the video. Yalla, commençons. This first language, Sjahri, is actually closely related to Tsukotri, which I spoke about in my first video. However, it is spoken in Oman instead of Yemen, shown here on the map. As you can see already from the map, another well-known name for the language is Jibali, meaning of the mountain, which seems to be used both by Omanis and Jibalis equally. However, the endonym for the people is Ahkli. Sjahri has around 85,000 native speakers today, yet it is still listed as severely endangered. What makes Sjahri interesting to me is that it is a modern South Arabian language, a very conservative sub-branch of Semitic languages that includes Soqotri, Mehri and others, and are actually a part of the South Semitic group, whereas Arabic is North Semitic. This means they are technically closer in relation to Afro-Semitic languages than they are to Arabic. It is worthy to note that there is another dialect of Sjahri referred to as Baby Jibali, spoken on the Huria Muria Islands off the coast of Oman. Within the Sultanate of Oman, the Sjahri language is often associated with the rebels during the Dhofar rebellion due to the region and overrepresentation of Jibali militants in the uprising. However, the language has much more to it, such as an extensive amount of consonants. Just look at all the variation here between these phonemes, which you don't usually find in Arabic. What's interesting to me is that the modern South Arabian languages often preserve the voiceless alveolar lateral fricative, which I have referred to in the past as the Welsh ll. Sjahri also boasts an unusually large amount of vowels for a Semitic language. For all the grammarians here, I have a bit of information about Sjahri. First of all, it uses both subject-verb-object and verb-subject-object word order depending on contexts, which is not too unusual. I imagine it uses one over the other when phrasing questions, which is pretty common in many languages and was a feature of Biblical Hebrew. Like many other Semitic languages, nouns are categorized by masculine or feminine gender. However, one of my favorite features of Semitic languages, dual number, has been lost by modern speakers, being replaced instead by adding the number 2 after the singular noun. Talking of numbers, counting works in a very similar way to Arabic, in which the gender of the number is reversed to that of the noun. So if you are counting an object that takes the masculine gender, the feminine form of the numbers will be used. Now let's take a look at a sample of the language. This text, which is an argument between 2 men, is part of an article I will link into the corner for anyone interested that goes more in depth with the language, with plenty of samples and translations. But the language is not usually written, so this IPA-esque transliteration is used. I scanned the text and was able to find a few possible cognates. First of all, this word, lo, is very similar to the pronunciation of the Hebrew word lo, being the main negation particle in Semitic languages. The Aramaic and Arabic equivalent would be la. Secondly, men ereshi, meaning from my head, is definitely related to the rather formal Hebrew min roshi. In modern Hebrew, this would be merosheli, and the Arabic equivalent would be min rasi. Finally, I think mun, meaning who, must be related to the Arabic word min, which also means who, though it sounds the same as min meaning from. In Hebrew, the cognate would be mi. Overall, it's really cool seeing these distant cognates that look familiar but yet so different at the same time. However, let's now move to a language that is much more familiar for us North Semitic speakers. The next language I would like to discuss I've been meaning to talk about for a while, as it's a miracle it's still alive really. This language is a variety of Neo-Aramaic called Syrian, spoken in Syria. However, one might make the mistake of thinking that it's Syriac in North Syria, but Syrian is actually this tiny language near the western border with Lebanon. I've researched a lot about this language before, but I'd not actually heard the term Syrian until recently, as I knew it as either Western Neo-Aramaic or as Ma'lula Aramaic. Apparently the term Syrian is the common endonym, though they sometimes call it Aramai. This is because it is spoken in 3 Aramaean towns, the biggest and most prominent being Ma'lula, the other 2 being Gupa'od and Baq'ah. What's interesting is that Gupa'od, or Jab'adin in Arabic, actually has a predominantly Muslim population, which proves that Aramaic isn't just a language for Christians and Jews, which there is a stereotype for. Combined, this puts the number of speakers to around 30,000 people, as of 2023, which is good to know that there is still a good number of people who speak about it. What's really amazing to me about Syrian is that it's the only surviving Western Aramaic language, which once spanned across the Levant and forms a substratum within the modern Levantine dialects, especially Lebanese. Since 2006, the University of Damascus has set up the Aramaic Language Institute to promote the use and preservation of the language, shown here. What you might have noticed is that Syrian appears to use the Hebrew script, shown here. In reality, this script, called square script, was actually originally a script used to write Aramaic, which was adopted by the Jews in Babylonia for writing Hebrew. However, in Syria, a lot of people didn't understand this and accused the Aramaic Language Institute of being Zionists who were trying to infiltrate the university, and actions were suspended in 2010. It's sad that anything remotely associated with Jews has to become a big political problem in many Arab states, but the Institute decided to get around this by dropping the Hebrew script for Syrian. Despite this, any research about the language seems to show only this script being used, and apparently it's the most commonly used script in Ma'lula today. Nonetheless, officially Syrian switched to writing with the Syriac script, much more associated with Christians than Jews, and the official spellings of the villages now look like this. Anyway, let's take a look at the phonology, which has the same simple 5-vowel system as Hebrew, yet has some additional consonants that don't exist in other varieties of Aramaic, such as ch, j, and j. Syrian has been influenced by Kurdish, Arabic, and Turkish. Kurdish apparently provided the most loanwords over the centuries, surprisingly, and may be the reason that ch ended up in the language. Finally, let's take a look at some samples. The first being the Paternoster prayer in Syrian on the left and in classical Syriac on the right for comparison with an older and standard liturgical form of Aramaic. Here on the right is a vocabulary list, and this one was more interesting for me as I spotted quite a few cognates with Hebrew, which I will show here. I really hope the recent events in Syria mean that a new period of prosperity will shine upon the Syrian language, as sadly the civil war destroyed the town of Baq'ah and many of the inhabitants left for elsewhere. It is currently a shadow of its former self. I hope the new Syrian government will also take such interest in trying to preserve the language to honour its promise of increasing the freedoms of various minority groups around the country. For now, however, its future is unclear, and with that, we will have to move on to the final language for this video. The last language I'd like to talk about is an enigmatic language spoken in northern Yemen known as Razihi. Razihi is spoken near the border with Saudi Arabia in towns and villages surrounding Jabal Razih. The endonym is either Razihi or Lahja Razihit, and in 2004 it was reported to have 62,900 speakers. As mentioned, the speakers are centered around Jabal Razikh in northern Yemen, where it was previously thought to be a Yemeni Arabic dialect. For centuries, legends told of the Razikhi people mentioned how they were incomprehensible to Arabic speakers, despite supposedly being just a dialect. However, further research has now led many scholars to think that Razikhi may be a descendant of the old South Arabian languages, thought to have gone extinct a little over 1,500 years ago, which included ancient languages such as Sabaean and Minaean, spoken in roughly the same area as Jabal Razikh today. Two other languages across the border have also been found and are thought to be descendants of Sabaean, but we can talk about them another time. Razikhi is not commonly written, and the isolation of the speakers is likely why this language has survived to the modern day. Mutual intelligibility is very low, and the speakers refer to the local Arabic as Yamanit, showing that they separate themselves from the language of the Arabs. A look at the phonology of Razikhi doesn't display anything too unusual, as it more or less lines up with Arabic. However, it does contain the cluster ch, and also maintains a difference between j and g, the latter of which most Arabic languages don't contain, with the notable exception of Masri. The vowels also display more variation than is typical in classical Arabic, though of course many modern varieties will contain such vowels. Moving over to some grammatical information / samples, we have a list of personal pronouns. What I found interesting is actually how unchanged they are from Proto-Semitic, and I could easily spot some cognates. Anih is similar with ani, and him and hin are really similar to hem and hen. Similarly, Razikhi also have the prepositions bu, meaning in, and alle, meaning on, which both resemble Hebrew greatly. And apparently these words are carried over from Sabaean rather than Arabic. Additionally, the feminine marker of a final taf is present not only in construct state but absolute state too, with the exception of certain Arabic loanwords. This is another feature which has been preserved from Proto-Semitic and is shared in modern South Arabian languages as well as Afro-Semitic languages and of course the Old South Arabian languages. Additionally, I have a table showing demonstrative pronouns, i.e. this and that. They are related to Hebrew zi and Aramaic di, which in Proto-Semitic would have had a the sound. It's amazing how the demonstrative pronouns have developed full conjugations too. Finally, I would like to conclude with some samples. Sadly, these are just pulled from Wikipedia directly, as I couldn't find any other additional information. The only cognate I can spot is la for no, which is pretty uniform across Semitic languages, it seems. I suspect there might be more information available in other languages, such as Arabic, so if anyone can find anything else, please let me know. I did find this article that I have linked, which adds a few other interesting pieces of context, but no more full examples. I will warn you that it's on Jstor, so you will need to log into an institution such as a university or college to read the article. However, I wish that this language will be more well studied and more well preserved, and more resources will become available soon. With that, I will conclude this video now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope everyone learnt something new in this video and found the topic as interesting as I did. If anyone has any additional information to add about these languages that I couldn't personally find, I'd be very interested in hearing it, so please do leave a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. However, for now, I thank you all once again for watching, and until the next video, toda rabba ve yalla bye.